Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Please do tell us where you are in the world in the comments section. My name is Catherine Mattice. I am the founder and CEO of Civility Partners. We are focused on building a positive, thriving work environment. And of course, anxiety or lack of anxiety is important, an important piece of that. So today I've got Caroline Cunningham with me. She's in Ireland, so it's dinner time for her. And Caroline experienced burnout in 1999, and she really found her way back through some recovery. And she's written a book called Seven C's to Calm, Reclaiming Your Anxiety Free Self. And that's what she does now. So she coaches professionals and teams around wellness and reducing anxiety and all of that. So thank you so much for being here, Caroline.
Thank you very much, Catherine, for inviting me, and hello to everybody on the call today.
We've got San Francisco and Nashville so far. So thanks for joining us all. So, Caroline, let's back up a little bit. Tell us a little bit about kind of your burnout journey. You said in 1999, you just realized you were super burnout. How did you have this epiphany? Where did you go from there?
Well, it was not a pleasant thing to happen at all, Catherine. Um, Burnout happened unexpectedly for me, but in hindsight, when I look back, I realised there was a lot of signals that I ignored. And when I listen to other people talk about their experiences, it's always the same thing they say. But back in 1999, the conversations around mental health in general were minimal.
Mhm.
We didn't talk about those things. I'm guessing it may have been similar where you are. But in general, here, like there's a huge stigma around mental health. It's getting better,
Mhm.
but back then it was a lot bigger in that regard. Plus, internet was just starting to be a thing that people had access to. It really wasn't everywhere. Like I didn't even own a computer that time. So even if I wanted to get help, it would have been a lot harder to do that. Basically, I was working as a teacher of maths and science. Stress was building up. I had stress not only in my work life, in my personal life. Some of
Okay.
it was due to unaddressed traumas, maybe from the past. But basically, I wasn't managing things well. And then things came to like a final straw, if you like, that broke the camel's back, and that was it. I was useless after that. I was an emotional wreck. I literally had no energy. I didn't know what I was going to do with myself. All I knew was I needed to change something. And in
Yeah.
fact, I changed quite a lot of things. I started getting very interested in well-being in general, and I did as many things as I could to learn about how to manage stress, cope better. But ultimately, my whole health and well-being improved, not right away, but from constant commitment and effort and acknowledging and recognizing what worked and what didn't work. So
Yeah.
here I am today as a result, helping other people not to fall into the same pitfalls that I had, and to mind themselves better.
Yeah. Could you share? You said you didn't realize how burnt out you were, but in hindsight, you have there were signs. Could you share some of those signs that were creeping
Um,
up that you didn't notice?
well, basically, I had a huge anxiety, going on, and the signs. I suppose there's a certain amount of avoidance. Um, like for me, it would have represented itself in maybe social anxiety, for example,
Mhm.
affecting my connections with others and being able to develop, relationships that could have maybe had an impact on my life. Thankfully, I've gone past all of that. So it can be a lonely experience for people. It can also manifest that you have like body symptoms, like tension, for example, in your body.
Mhm.
I used to have quite a lot of knots here and there. It would affect my digestion even. Being tired a lot of the time.
Mhm.
Um, Losing your zest for life, I suppose, would be a way to kind of describe it overall. Um, there were times, where I would recognize, oh, I'm not really enjoying this as I used to, or dreading maybe going to work or something like
Mhm.
that. If you find yourself thinking that way, there are definitely signs that you need to do something. You need to stop and have a reflection on how you're living your life and see is there something that can be changed to make things easier.
Yeah. And we have a ton of people saying they're coming in and tuning in from all around the world. So thank you all for joining. And please do put comments and questions, and we will make sure that we answer those. So, um, talk to us about some of what's in your book, The Seven Seas to Calm.
Well,
What are some
just
of the tips
just hold
that
it up
you
here.
have in
There's
there?
my little book. As I said, it's green cover, a green screen behind me, and I have to put it right in front of me. So it's called Seven Seas to Calm: Reclaiming Your Anxiety-Free Self. And the whole point of this little book is that it's simple and has it just gets straight to it with practical tips and suggestions and a little workbook at the back to help people to get going straight away with putting these things into practice. So the way it came about was I had maybe 9 years ago I started out in business as a holistic therapist, which evolved into being also a coach. I had a lot of professionals coming to me, a lot of them working in global companies, and with access to health supports and things like that, but yet struggling with managing stress. And because I was talking a lot about anxiety and mental health back then, people confided in me that they were having these issues. And I was
Mhm.
able to help them identify, yes, that is anxiety. And I shared my, things that helped me with them and encouraged them to do more for themselves. And it just gave people a sense of empowerment, I suppose, to start looking at making changes and
Mhm.
putting things in place that could help. So
Mhm.
that was how the book came about. Like I was also meeting people at network events, for example. Um, People confiding in me once they knew my work, was involved in this area. I remember a lady who she looked so confident coming into the room, dressed very well.
Mhm.
I think she was a solicitor actually. And when she told me that she almost didn't come to that meeting because she dreaded going into these situations with people she didn't know,
Mhm.
network events, and she was there to promote her business, but she almost didn't know. So there's a lot of people experiencing these kind of issues. So I just knew I wanted to help people. I thought to myself, we've all gone through college, we've university, we're very intelligent, highly skilled, yet we've never discussed these things and the fact that
Yep.
they actually have a big impact on our lives. So that's what my little book is about. It's about getting that conversation going and sowing the seeds of hope, but also that this is very real. You can do something, and
Yeah.
just start that journey
Yeah.
to make your life better.
Yeah, well, I would love to share mine with you because I have had a very recent, like last 8 weeks mental shift. So it's very relevant. So I'm going through a very nasty divorce and I have my business and I have 2 kids. And so now I'm single mom half the time and all of that. And um, toward the last year was definitely a struggle. The divorce, the nastiness was escalating and I there was definitely a point where I was at my breaking point and I definitely felt like I just can't do this anymore. I give up. And then something there was a scenario that happened with the ex that we don't need to go into, but it heightened my anxiety so much that I just finally it's like it clicked in my brain. It's like I sat up one morning and was just like, I'm not going to let that stuff bother me anymore. He's who he is. I can't change him. I can't live my life reacting to him because he's always going to be him. And just that mental shift of like disassociating myself from him. And now, I mean, it's sad. He was my husband at one point, but just like, he's now just a being that I have to interact with. And it's not pleasant, but I've really figured out how to compartmentalize and really disassociate is the best way to talk about it. And hopefully one day we can work our way back to friends and co-parenting, but it is what it is right now. But I feel amazing after a year of just lost in my shit. I've been telling everyone I'm back, it's gone, I'm good. So that's one tip I have. It's just sometimes if there's a person or a situation, you have to just maybe disassociate yourself from it. Could mean quitting a job where you're not treated well. it could mean ending a relationship where you're not treated well, that kind of a thing. So
Catherine, I really appreciate you sharing that story, and I would ask you also because I've been following some of your other posts here on LinkedIn, and you talk a lot about bullying, for example, in the workplace and your own experience as well. So, would you say, for example, that getting through this more recent issue of with the divorce and the anxiety, would you say your past experiences of having tackled other issues that caused you a lot of stress gave you that sense of I can do this? That the fact that you took those other steps.
Yes, I would. I'm a big fan of the positive psychology realm, and in that realm, in that field, there's a theory called broaden and build by Barbara Fredrickson, and she talks about that, where if you go through something ugly or challenging or some sort of rough spot, that if you can crawl your way out of it, now you're actually happier and better because now you have those tools. And then the next time that thing happens or something similar, so your resilience is this constant building so that you broaden your repertoire of options and ways to work through things every time something like that happens. And then it's a pattern, right? Because then you start to build self-esteem out of that. Like I got through that really nasty thing, and so I'm better now.
Yeah, so, great. There's so many different types of anxiety, and it affects people. Some people can have it right throughout their life, or not realizing there's something they can do, for example. Other people may experience it at different times during their life. Or there's different types of anxiety, like phobias, for example, panic attacks, which I also experienced for a period of time. So there's so many different aspects to it. Some people get diagnosed with having a disorder, word which I'm not about, but yes, that's what it's called.
Yeah, that's very, very in the workplace bullying world. Definitely symptoms of PTSD, pop up, and that's it's kind of fascinating that the way you're treated at work could cause some of the same sorts of problems that going to war could cause, or being in some physical what's the word I'm looking for, of some big event, that going to work could be that as well. And let's talk about work for a second. So have you looked at any research, or can you talk to us about the damage that burnout has on work and customers? And sometimes we got to sell these more squishy topics to the leadership.
Well, there's a few aspects, like there's the person themselves who's experiencing the anxiety. So for them, there's a lot of restrictions that can be there. Basically you end up missing out on a lot of things. You end up sometimes, being unseen, unheard, because, you're avoiding various situations, not speaking up, not getting to promotion because maybe presentations and things like that are, a thing that you find really hard.
Right.
But the other thing as well is it has an overall impact on your long-term health. So if you're experiencing long-term or more severe anxiety, more than likely you will have other health issues after a while, because all those stress hormones that are roaming around inside you on a prolonged basis when they're not needed, they actually impact your ability to digest food, get the nutrients that you need to be healthy. It has an impact on your immune system similarly. It can affect your sleep, which affects focus, ability to focus, brain functioning, like memory and learning abilities, for example, can be impacted severely over time. So in the workplace for teams, if you have people being affected in that way, it puts more pressure on the teams then, and the resilience of teams gets affected. Actually, there was an article in the one of our national newspapers here in 2018. I remember digging it up a while ago. And our then Minister for Health reported that the cost to the Irish economy was 8.2 billion euros a year. Now, we've got 5 million-ish population here. Can you imagine if that was equivalent in US, for example, A lot more
Yeah.
people over there. Roughly picking a figure out of the air, something like 600 billion US dollars. That would be,
Yeah.
um,
And I've seen
comparing
similar stuff from
populations.
the American Psychological Association, APA. It probably is right around that 600 billion. Yeah.
Yeah, like this
For
was in
American.
relation to mental health in general, but in the same article they said that 6.3% of people were experiencing an anxiety disorder. Now there was another article I came across which said that 1 in 9 people are experiencing anxiety, but quite a lot of people don't actually report
Yeah.
that they have anxiety. So
Yeah.
um, my thing is that when I was experiencing, in particular, panic attacks, it was probably a whole year before I said anything to anybody. In fact, I didn't say anything at all. It was a friend who pulled me to one side and kind of said, Caroline, I don't think this is you. You're kind of gone into yourself, or I noticed, you're acting differently or whatever. And when
Hmm.
they asked me about a little bit of what my experience was, they said to me, I think you're experiencing panic attacks.
Wow.
Maybe you should talk to somebody
Yeah.
professionally about that. And yes, I was experiencing panic attacks. I was too afraid to tell anybody, because I
Yeah.
thought they'll think I'm
Well,
mad.
yeah, let's talk about that. Why do we have such a, and I think it's changing, but why is there
Yeah.
such a social stigma around burnout and feeling anxious or, just the arms in the air, I can't do this. Why is that so
Well,
bad?
unfortunately, it seems that there is an appearance of that you're weak or there's
Right.
something wrong with you or whatever, when that's not really the case at all. Like, as I say to people, babies are not born anxious that we know of anyway. They don't get diagnosed at least. But, we encounter situations in our life that, you know, trigger us to react certain ways, or
Hmm.
we learn these behaviors even. We
Hmm.
can actually learn to be anxious just from being around other people that are anxious. But just our environment can contribute to that. So, unless we recognize what's happening and if we don't do anything about it, this can continue on and perhaps deteriorate and cause real issues in our lives for us.
Right.
So that's why it's so important that we have these spaces that we can talk about them and create awareness so that we can support each other. Um, Before the chat today, I reached out to some of the people who were planning to be on the call with us today and asked them, is there anything you'd like us to talk about? Now, a few people did say, in my own life, I have this, I'm walking around with anxiety, most of the time. It may be a low level of anxiety, but still causes unease.
Yeah.
Another person said their teenager was experiencing anxiety, around studies and exams and things like that. So in our circle of family and friends and colleagues, there's quite a lot of people around us who may be experiencing anxiety, and they're all genders. It's not just one gender. I
Right.
think women get assigned to be more anxious than others, but I've had men and women come to me in my practice, with anxiety. It's not just gender specifically.
Yeah, women get a bad rap for being emotional, right? But
Yeah.
kind of tying it back to bullying, since you brought it up earlier, I coach individuals who have been accused or who are perceived as bullying or, engaging in kind of toxic behavior. And my entire coaching program for those individuals is focused on stress, if you can believe it, anxiety. So I boil it all down to fight or flight. And if you're fighting, bullying, you're being aggressive, that's fight. That means you're anxious about something and you got to figure out why you're anxious. And by the way, everybody else is avoiding you, so they're fleeing because you're making them anxious. So it's and as you can imagine, most of my coaching clients are men. But yeah, so it's just women get that bad rap of handling anxiety by breaking down in tears, and then for whatever reason we're not too concerned when a man's handling his anxiety by yelling, right, or being kind of aggressive or interrupting people. But yeah, absolutely. So if I have a friend or a colleague or a peer who is I can see some signs of anxiety, or maybe they're telling me how anxious they are. What are some things that I can do to help them with that? What
Well,
can I do?
yeah, the first thing, Catherine, I suppose, is always to listen to the person and to acknowledge what they're saying, and you know, to to show an understanding, side. But I suppose maybe before that, even being informed about anxiety can help with that situation. Um, to understand what it is, what what's happening to the person when they're experiencing anxiety. As you mentioned there about the stress response,
Hmm.
like just knowing about that, what's actually happening inside your body, that's empowering in itself. So I
Hmm.
encourage people, get your biology books back out there and have a look at them. Actually, you might not find all the answers there, but you certainly will online nowadays. You can find them.
Yeah.
But the other thing as well is supporting the person in taking steps, pointing them in the direction of where they can get help or how they can start. Um,
Right.
Meditating is a really good way to start. Now, you can call it breathing techniques or something else if you like, but that whole thing of calming, restoring calm, finding things that help you to restore calm. That beautiful picture of a tree behind me is one of my ways of restoring calm. Trees have been hugely therapeutic in my journey. So that's one of my things that has helped me. Um, and my little book, of course, I have to mention that as well. As I said, it's designed to be very simple and to get people thinking what they can do, and it gives a structure. So there are 7 actual C's. The first one is comfort. It's again about restoring calm and
Hmm.
recognizing things that bring you a sense of comfort. So for me, it was one of them was trees,
Hmm.
um, spending time in nature, and getting out for walks, for example. But there can be lots of different things. Music is can be very therapeutic. Um,
Hmm.
so people can find their own personal things. And my little book is designed to help you explore that. Um, so in the workplace, Catherine, like having a safe environment where it's okay to talk about these things. You don't have to go and specifically say I have anxiety, but being able to talk about it in general in the workspace at least allows people to take the steps
Yeah.
and to know that you don't have to hide completely. There
Yeah.
you can find out. There's going to be something there hopefully to help you, and there will be somebody. Like it would be great if managers were more open to having these type of conversations, so that they can unlock the potential of their teams.
Right.
Um,
We have some questions around the employer's role in all of this. So I think, Luis, we probably answered your question, which was tips around helping others, do you think? And we have 2 questions around HR. So I'm going to show this one. HR has a big role to play to deal with burnout issues. Should HR be running company-wide surveys to collect data? And then before you answer that, I'm going to couple that with this other question. As HR professionals, we're recommended not to handle it and refer it to EAP. I don't subscribe, as they want to be heard and listening allows to both build. Any thoughts on this? So I have lots of thoughts on both of those questions, but I'll let you
yeah.
go first.
Well, my thoughts on it is that it's best when there's an independent body, dealing with the questions and the answers, and that they can be represented then in a general way
Mhm.
to the HR, because I think that opens the door a little bit more for revealing what's going on and not kind of putting yourself on the spot.
Yeah.
Because I suppose there's again, unless there's a really good open trusting kind of environment there, people might not volunteer this type of information. But there does need to be a way to see, and sometimes even by asking the questions can be very powerful. As a therapist and coach, sometimes consultation, which asks the questions, provides a space to reflect.
Hmm.
And that reflection is actually a very important part of taking steps to recovery or finding healing
Yeah.
solutions.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's good you do need to ask questions, and it is about the way that is presented to
Yeah.
employees.
My thought is there's this really great article that I've been talking a lot about lately. I wrote a blog post about it, actually. It's from the McKinsey Health Institute. And the whole article was like, when I saw it, I'm like, yes, I've been saying this forever. But what they were saying in this article is all of these companies who have EAPs, meditation apps, will get you a free gym membership. That's all just individual. Here, we're going to give you some kind of, sprinkle you with some stuff to help you with your anxiety. But the workplace is one of the biggest places that our anxiety comes from. So if you're focused on reducing anxiety in your organization, you have to look at the culture. So asking people to work 10 hours, but then giving them an EAP, that bothers me. It boggles my mind that that's where we're at right now. And so, yes, Serene, we should absolutely be doing surveys. A lot of organizations do employee engagement surveys, but that is just measuring engagement. You need to be doing what's called a climate assessment, which measures all sorts of things: engagement, stress, trust in leadership, relationships, communication flow, and effectiveness. And then you can say, here are some organizational problems that we need to fix. And now we can, look at burnout through that and try to solve those problems. So an EAP, I know a lot of insurance companies throw an EAP in there as a value add, but that's not really telling your workforce that you care about them. Everybody knows EAPs are a dime a dozen. It's not. So, and then
I think they're called portals sometimes here.
yeah, here's a portal. And in fact, it's funny. Now I'm on a rant. During the height of COVID, I was working one of my clients. I was sort of their director of HR for a time there while we were working through some projects. And their EAP sent, I was HR, so they sent me this email to send out to everyone that was, supposed to help. It was like, don't forget the EAP is here if you want to call us. But what was funny about it was this email itself was anxiety heightening. It was like, the world is ending, your hair's on fire, you're probably dying. Don't forget to call us. And so I actually rewrote it and was like, I am not sending that out. So I thought that was kind of fascinating that the EAP had written something that was like making it worse. So anyway, I have lots of thoughts on these questions around anxiety. And in the end, people cannot be their true selves. Psychological safety is the big kind of thing right now, right? People can't feel psychologically safe if they can't talk about feeling burned out or whatever. So it's up to organizations to address that stigma and to say, we're okay if we hear that type of a thing. And that's, like you said, Caroline, managers, CEOs are writing internal blogs and saying, I'm struggling with anxiety right now too, to kind of open that door to get people talking. Anyway, I'll be quiet now. I'm like,
yeah, I know. I like working with small teams, Catherine, and at the moment I'm working with some remote working teams in particular and their managers. So that really allows me to help them create that culture for themselves where there is openness, because in a small team, you can get to know people better, and but as my role I call myself a well-being Sherpa for a reason.
yeah.
Because I love the idea of the Sherpas. They guide people up the mountain. They've been there several times before, but they don't take all the glory for getting the people to the top. Right, the people get to the top themselves. That's what I like about this little title that I've chosen. But in working with these teams, I establish a goal for that they have overall with the manager, the business leader first, for the team, what they want to achieve, and then we look at how wellness fits into that, because wellness affects productivity, performance, mental clarity, innovation, all those things. And thankfully, there are people out there who are willing to acknowledge that and put it into action. And obviously, managers and business owners, they can't do everything themselves. So I'm there to fill that gap. And by
Right.
working individually with each of them and assessing their well-being, through a consultation at the beginning, we can establish then the goals that fit into the company goals
Right.
and the things that are well-being related that have a knock-on effect. Um, when I'm reporting back to the manager, it's still private as to what's personal, but it's still relevant because we're seeing an improvement. We're seeing how things are benefiting the team in general. And it's a lot is like what you just described there. The whole thing about communication
Hmm.
and, getting over these anxiety issues, for example, that cause us to go into our shells and, keep things to ourselves and stuff like that. That's really all part of it.
Yeah, yeah. Organizations, absolutely. And I just don't know any really that are. Really have to ask themselves what's happening here in our workplace that causes anxiety before you start sending out emails that, hey, we've got a new EAP. Just for an example, communication, if it's frustrating in some way, that causes anxiety. So something simple. If I feel like when I send something over to the accounting department and it doesn't get through and there's some thwarted problem there with my communication with accounting, that creates anxiety. And so you got to understand, that's just an example of like there's a communication process there that's not working and it's causing anxiety. So organizations constantly need to be evolving and learning, and that's where those surveys come in. And that's why we include communication efficiency and effectiveness in our survey, because I know miscommunication is very anxiety heightening, especially at work when you rely on people to help you meet your goals. So
And managing
anyway,
as well, managing
yeah,
your time effectively and,
yeah,
your tasks and things like that. That all plays into it as well. So the whole idea is to keep things from, escalating, avoid having this unnecessary pressure, finding ways to do things more efficiently, I suppose, really.
yeah, yeah.
It's identifying all those things. The question I encourage people to ask always, and apply this to yourself, not just your work, how can I do this better?
Hmm.
How can I have a better experience of this situation?
Right.
How can I enjoy my life more?
Yeah, and that's the thing. You can't wait around for your organization to fix things so that you can be less anxious. You have to take control of that. And yeah, back to square one, right? If you feel like my organization causes me anxiety for whatever those reasons are, they don't seem interested in helping me address that anxiety, then they're saying they don't care about you, and you should say I don't care about you either and go and find a new job. So anyway, well, thank you so much, Caroline. This was a great conversation. I'm gonna got some blog post ideas rolling around in my head. And thanks all for joining us. Caroline and I, this video will be here forever, so feel free to revisit, share out, and thanks all. Enjoy the rest
Catherine,
of your day,
thank,
night, evening.
thank you also, and thanks to everybody who's joined the call, and I look forward to following up as well with you all. Thank you, Catherine.
Yeah, thank you. All right, bye everyone.
Bye bye. Bye bye.